evolution of Taylor Swift's style and image. Taylor Swift is without a doubt one of the most polarizing figures in pop culture, with people either loving or loving to hate her. But whatever your thoughts are on the singer/songwriter/actress, there's no denying that after years of hard work, Taylor has made a permanent place for herself in pop culture, the music industry, and in the fashion world. From teen country princess to international pop star, Taylor's style has been reinvented on numerous occasions over the years, with her red carpet and casual looks being carefully curated to evoke the theme and aesthetic of whatever project she's working on. In today's video, we'll be examining the evolution of Taylor Swift's style, from a general overview of her aesthetic over the years to how her look correlates to her public persona and music. Let's get into it. Growing up in Pennsylvania, Taylor showed an interest in music from an early age and was writing and performing her own songs by the age of 12. Determined to enter the music industry, she started regularly visiting the country music epicenter Tennessee in an effort to land a recording contract, passing out her CD to different labels in the hopes that someone would offer her a deal. After convincing her family to move to Nashville full-time when she was 14, she continued writing and performing locally, where she eventually met Scott Borchetta, who signed Taylor to his new label, Big Machine Records. Taylor's self-titled album for the label found immediate success, with her first single, Tim McGraw, debuting at number 86 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song, along with others on the album, gave insight into Taylor's life as a teenager, primarily in regard to romantic relationships, and led to widespread critical acclaim for her songwriting abilities. With its country pop style, this album not only influenced the direction of her career for the next few years, but her look and image as well. In the 2000s, Western wear was gaining traction in the fashion world, with items that may have once only been worn by country singers, cowboys, or truckers becoming totally mainstream. Graphic tees, cowboy hats, denim, fringe, paisley, leather, American flags, and statement belts were everywhere, and could be regularly spotted on celebrities of the time like Carrie Underwood, Beyoncé, and Britney Spears, and were also featured in films like Joe Dirt, The Dukes of Hazzard, and Coyote Ugly. This distinctive look became further popularized after 9/11 and the invasion of Iraq, when many aspects of American culture, from films to fashion, leaned into the idea of patriotism and nationalism. Taylor Swift's brand was created in response to this growing interest in classic Americana, combined with the proven success formula of teen pop stars, and her image similarly reflected the duality of this intended audience. I remember the first time I watched the music video for our song, and I thought that she looked exactly like Country Barbie. Taylor's stylist at the time, Sandy Borchetta, was heavily involved in all aspects of her image, from the red carpet to performances to music videos, and as a result, Taylor's aesthetic during this time period told a cohesive story. She would often wear clothing that was stereotypically country, combined with a fairy tale elegance that were reminiscent of her lyrics, creating a unique look that was entirely her own. The country elements of her aesthetic included cowboy boots, giant curls, and floral boho dresses, while the fantasy aspects were rhinestones, empire silhouettes, and corsets. The public persona that was created for Taylor focused on the idea that she was a down-to-earth country girl who'd been unlucky in love, and her wardrobe played a large part in this narrative. In music videos, she would appear in dressed-down, conservative looks that any high schooler would wear, stuff that you could buy at Abercrombie or Hollister. Then she would have a Cinderella-esque transformation, appearing in a gorgeous gown and full glam that was still age-appropriate. By having her wear this seemingly normal clothing, she had a relatability that other stars lacked, and the modesty of her dresses created a squeaky clean image that provided parents a sense of security during a time when other young celebrities were off partying or getting arrested. This wholesome image was solidified by Taylor's red carpet wardrobe, where she would wear floor-length gowns with romantic silhouettes in soft colors, making her look like a princess as opposed to a pop star. This allowed her to distance herself from any negative connotations that being a young celebrity had. Because of her age, the goal at the time wasn't to make Taylor appear sexy or edgy, but instead to have her come off as approachable and amiable, something that clearly worked as she was eventually given the nickname America's Sweetheart. The only song on the album driven by anger, the music video for 2008's Picture to Burn has a distinctly different look and aesthetic than her previous projects, making it more similar to Carrie Underwood's Before He Cheats than Teardrops on My Guitar. In the music video, Taylor wears darker colors and heavier makeup than we've seen her in thus far, and she's no longer depicted as angelic, naive, and love-struck, but instead as vengeful, angsty, and powerful. It was a small glimpse at her range and capabilities, as well as an early example of the edginess that Taylor would employ later on in her career. As Taylor got older and gained more mainstream attention, she began to move away from the princessy looks and busy styling, leaning towards more of an edgy country pop style that consisted of darker colors, tighter silhouettes, and lots of sparkles, with the latter becoming a mainstay of her performance wardrobe throughout her career. Taylor's second studio album, Fearless, was released in 2008 and had more of a pop influence than her prior album, with its prominent themes focusing on love and life from a high school girl's perspective. Because the narrative of this project was similar to her debut album, many of those visuals and styling choices remained, especially early on in the Fearless era. Take for instance the music video for the album's first single, Love Story, which featured Taylor wearing ball gowns while running around a castle, something that now could be seen as a near parody of her style at the time. As she matured professionally, emotionally, and stylistically, she stopped wearing these costume-like dresses on red carpets and gravitated towards designers instead. Unlike years prior, where she'd be presented as cute and youthful on red carpets, she now took on a more mature and glamorous look, likely due to the influence of her new stylist, Joseph Castle. She would often wear neutral colors like black, white, or tan, but with sequins and lower necklines to create a dynamic visual. By making this change, she started to look less like a little girl playing dress-up and more like a sophisticated young woman. This was likely a conscious effort by Taylor and her management to dissuade the growing criticisms of her early success. If she was presented as an adult, then her accomplishments in the music industry were justifiable, not a fluke based on novelty. These outfits marked a new direction when it came to Taylor's branding, where they were determining if she had the ability to cross over into mainstream pop. With the album distancing itself from classic country, Taylor's everyday look became a touch more modern, with her cowboy boots being phased out in favor of knee-high riding boots. She also started regularly sporting low-rider headbands, a hippie and flapper-inspired trend that rose in popularity at the end of the 2000s. Not only were these mainstays of her daily wardrobe, but she regularly wore them in photo shoots as well, revealing how aspects of Taylor's style were rooted in current fashion trends. Taylor wore a wide range of aesthetics during this Fearless era, ranging from comfy lumberjack attire to boho chic festival fashion to ultra-feminine looks with preppy accents. These preppy elements like T-strap heels, cardigans, plaid, and stockings would wind up making appearances in her wardrobe for years to come. The way that she experimented with her style, unable to stick to one defined look, seemed very much like the mindset of someone who's trying to discover themselves, which could also be seen as a reflection of her musical evolution, which was beginning to take influence from various genres and artists. Although her everyday outfits were fairly conservative, supporting the wholesome image she developed at the start of her career, she was seeing an increase in edgy editorials. Her cover of the April 2009 issue of Allure featured one of the earliest appearances of her now signature red lips, and her photo shoot for New York Times Magazine was one of the first times she delivered a high fashion concept. Keep in mind that she hadn't reached superstardom yet, so the fact that people in fashion were willing to take risks when it came to her style proved that they saw her potential. The majority of music videos for the Fearless album featured Taylor in real-life scenarios with simple styling that tied into the emotional vulnerability presented in her lyrics. As Taylor has said herself, her music is essentially her diary, a way of describing her life as she sees it, and her clothing helps tell this story. Although her past music videos had also featured clear storylines, during the Fearless era she took it to the next level, allowing audiences to relate to her circumstances more than they would if she was just lip-syncing to camera in front of different sets. One of her most ambitious and memorable projects was the music video for You Belong With Me, which gave a glimpse into the humor, personality, and storytelling that would appear in Taylor's work as she gained more control over the creative process. Starring Taylor in the roles of the mean cheerleader and the dorky girl next door, the video led to numerous inside jokes and Easter eggs that Taylor would utilize in marketing in years to come. Over the course of the video, Taylor wears an assortment of outfits ranging from geek chic to bimbo-esque to emo, as well as featuring a classic makeover moment where she takes off her glasses and appears in a white gown, finally getting the boy. The video drew comparisons to Avril Lavigne's Girlfriend, with both videos featuring the artists as the protagonist and antagonist pining after the same guy. And in more recent years, the song has been called the Not Like Other Girls anthem. Similar to how songs like Tim McGraw and Picture to Burn epitomize the country genre, You Belong With Me was an ode to classic narratives in teen media. You Belong With Me was a certified hit upon its release, resulting in Taylor receiving several nominations at the 2010 Grammys and a nomination at the 2009 VMAs, with the latter being the catalyst for one of the most infamous pop culture moments of the 21st century. Arriving at the awards show in a pumpkin carriage, symbolic of how she saw this as her Cinderella moment, Taylor was nominated for and won Best Female Video. This was one of Taylor's first non-country awards, and upon going on stage, she started by saying, quote, "I always dreamed about what it would be like to maybe win one of these someday, but I never thought it actually would have happened. I sing country music. So thank you so much for giving me the chance to win a VMA award." Then she was interrupted. Kanye West, who had shown up to the award show with a bottle of Hennessy, drunkenly declared that Beyoncé had one of the best videos of all time, implying that Taylor didn't deserve the award, before being booed off stage, leaving Taylor shocked and confused. Only 19 at the time, Taylor was reportedly crying about the incident backstage, but pulled herself together and bravely went on to perform live minutes later. When Beyoncé won the award for Video of the Year later in the evening, she invited Taylor on stage to finish her acceptance speech, allowing the young star to have her deserved moment. In the aftermath of the event, which some had initially thought was staged, Kanye's actions drew widespread criticism, with then-President Barack Obama even chiming in. Quote, "I thought that was really inappropriate. She was getting an award. Why are you butting in? The young lady seems like a perfectly nice person. He's a jackass." Although Taylor was obviously not to blame for the situation, there's no denying that her wholesome image and lack of prior scandal heavily influenced who the public saw as the villain and the victim. And as a result of the backlash, Kanye West withdrew from public eye. The incident made headlines worldwide and brought Taylor to a whole new level of fame, not only introducing her music to new audiences, but painting her in a positive light at the same time. According to then MTV Music Group president Van Tuffler, Taylor's team was actually ecstatic about the situation, recalling that Scott Borchetta said, quote, "Yesterday, most of the country had no idea who Taylor Swift was. Today, Oprah Winfrey sent her flowers and asked if she could talk to her." For months afterwards, Taylor was constantly asked about the situation and found herself unable to escape reminders of the moment, effectively casting a shadow over the remainder of her Fearless era. 2010's Speak Now served as a transitional moment not only in regard to Taylor's career, but her image as well. Unlike her past albums, which were largely about romance, Speak Now focused on different aspects of growing up. The confusing, sad, exciting, and uncomfortable moments between adolescence and adulthood. The songs on Speak Now were less idealistic about romance, instead focusing on the harsh realities of being in a relationship, something that was mirrored in her music videos, which no longer featured any fantastical elements. Some of the songs thanked fans for their support, others carried messages of anti-bullying, and one even alluded to the Kanye West incident. The song, Innocent, which Taylor performed at the 2010 VMAs, received mixed reviews, with some critics calling it patronizing, condescending, and self-righteous. With Kanye West in hiding and Taylor having spent the last year being interviewed about the scandal and making jokes about it, people began to call her manipulative, bitter, and clingy. As she began appearing in more acting roles, including a stint on CSI and a part in the star-studded film Valentine's Day, people began to question her priorities, talent, and career direction, with harsher criticisms saying she was fame-hungry and nothing more than a pretty face. And although Taylor's music had long been about romance and relationships, the Speak Now era ushered in criticism that she was in a creative rut and boy crazy. This latter sentiment became even more popular after she was romantically linked to A-list men like Jake Gyllenhaal, Joe Jonas, John Mayer, and Taylor Lautner. And in classic misogynistic fashion, she started to be branded as a slut, because God forbid a woman be allowed to date. The backlash that Taylor received around this time was heavily rooted in sexism, with Taylor being held to a standard that no male celebrities were. No one questioned why men in their 30s were dating a 19-year-old girl, or criticized male pop artists who similarly wrote songs about love. This double standard, though apparent now, greatly affected Taylor's image at the time, and jokes made at her expense were all too common. Although her public persona took several hits, professionally she was thriving, and Speak Now became the fastest-selling album for a female country star and was certified 6 times platinum. As if to test her marketability, in 2011 Taylor also released a perfume, Wonderstruck, and its success proved that she was a bona fide star with a loyal fan base, helping provide a sense of security during a time when the public's perception of her character had soured. The fabulous tulle gown that she wore in advertising for the product was designed by Christian Siriano, who would go on to make other outfits for Taylor over the course of her career. With its bluegrass and rock influences, Taylor's outfits during her Speak Now era took inspirations from fashions of the 1940s and 50s like halters, polka dots, sweetheart necklines, florals, tea dresses, and kitten heels. As if to combat the narrative that she was promiscuous, her everyday clothing became more demure and conservative, something one's grandmother might wear. Meanwhile, on red carpets, it would be common to spot her in looks that were an ode to old Hollywood glamour, with floor-length gowns and sleek updos. Unlike Fearless, where the goal was to make her appear mature, the goal now was to make her look unassuming, someone who would never conspire against you. Her 4th studio album, Red, was released in 2012 and is considered her first album to be more pop than country. The project focused on the complex feelings about a dying relationship, with Taylor herself describing it as her, quote, only true breakup album, and its name comes from the similarly red emotions she was feeling at the time. Now 22, it seemed as though Taylor had finally discovered her personal style, and she fully committed, with her street, red carpet, and performance attire taking on the same look. Her iconic red aesthetic took notes from the retro elements from Speak Now and the preppiness of Fearless, while adding a sophistication and elegance that could only come with age and maturity. This resulted in a classic and chic style that was reminiscent of old Hollywood starlets like Ava Gardner or Audrey Hepburn, and she began sporting pearls, cigarette pants, Peter Pan collars, ballet flats, pea coats, saddle shoes, high-rise shorts, and skater skirts. The majority of these influences can be traced back to trends of the 1950s and 60s, something that people saw as equal parts ironic and creepy when she was dating Connor Kennedy. Taylor began to incorporate significantly more color into her wardrobe around this time, a stark contrast to years prior where she was attempting to fade into the background. She often wore nautical-inspired colors, which not only tied into the album and her penchant for the 50s, but was generally on trend at the time. Just look at One Direction. 50s fashion was all the rage in the early 2010s, and multiple celebrities incorporated these elements into their looks. Alex Turner from the Arctic Monkeys completely rebranded himself as a greaser, Lana Del Rey's national anthem was a full-blown ode to the time period, and Zooey Deschanel was the hipster twee queen. Taylor's look was quintessential 50s housewife, and considerably more conservative than anything she'd worn in the past. Unfortunately, this didn't prevent negative comments about her relationship history from popping up, especially after it was discovered that she was dating Harry Styles. Nothing is more terrifying than jealous fans. Nearing the end of the era, we began to see Taylor in sleek and sexy suits, something that many interpreted as her way of pushing back against the sexist narrative that surrounded her, directly coinciding with the rise of the #girlboss movement of the 2010s. Suits had long been considered menswear, but during the 1930s and 1940s there was a shift, with actresses like Katharine Hepburn and Marlene Dietrich wearing them in films, eventually bringing them into mainstream fashion. Although these outfits were reported as sexy, in reality these looks weren't the most risque, but it was refreshing to see her feel comfortable and confident enough to express different aspects of her style. It was as if she was saying she would no longer be silenced or shamed simply for existing as a woman. I attribute this sexy style switch up to her appearance at the 2013 Victoria's Secret fashion show, where she befriended several models who were known to embrace their sexuality on and off the runway. One of my favorite looks from this time period was the navy Hervé Leger bandage dress she wore to the 2013 VMAs. Bandage dresses were incredibly popular in the 2010s, with countless celebrities being spotted in them, but this version of the dress managed to come across as unique while staying true to her personal style sensibilities. One of the biggest differences when it came to her look during this time period was her hair. She'd long been sporting big bouncy curls, to the point that no Taylor Swift parody was complete without them. But by 2012, she not only had a blunt bang, but had started wearing her hair straight as well. I remember being obsessed with the haircut, but looking back at it today, it's bittersweet considering it's highly likely that the change was made in order to further distance herself from the person that people hated. Named and inspired by the year she was born, 2014's 1989 featured a distinctive electronic and pop sound that wasn't present in her past work, and marked her first album that wasn't labeled as country. Although it continued to feature songs about romance, there were also ballads about self-empowerment and confidence, allowing Taylor to publicly showcase her sexuality and maturity to a never-before-seen degree. While past songs and projects had depicted love in a romanticized and innocent light, 1989 had undeniable sexual and aggressive undertones. Many of the songs on the album directly reference the public's perception of her, wittily poking fun at the rumors and misconceptions about her character. In Wildest Dreams, she's a homewrecker, in Bad Blood, she's vengeful, and in Blank Space, she's a serial dater. These music videos featured the storytelling aspects and hidden meanings that she'd become known for, but with the added benefit of higher production value and beautiful clothing. During this time, her personal style became more high fashion and chic, likely due to her friendship with top models and her move to New York City. You'll also notice that she chopped her hair short, further distancing herself from her past self. Cutting one's hair can often be interpreted as a fresh start, and symbolically 1989 was a reinvention, a chance for Taylor to focus on a new chapter in her life. Unlike her Red era, where some of her outfits came off as matronly, now there was an emphasis on flirtiness and fun. Although we could still see aspects of Taylor's previous era with the vintage influence, there was a sense of edginess and risk now, as if she no longer cared what others thought of her. Her skirts got shorter, and she started wearing crop tops and towering heels, showing how she'd evolved from someone who was afraid of the gossip to someone who didn't care. An example that comes to mind is her appearance at the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Although she had performed the previous year, this marked the first time where she dressed the part, wearing negligee and lingerie, exuding femme fatale energy. It was also around this time period that she grew a penchant for matching sets, something that carried over into her performance wear. Overall, it seemed like the natural progression of her previous style philosophy, simply adjusted for the times and the new direction of this album. When Bad Blood came out in 2015, Taylor fully embraced the edgy, futuristic neo-noir look that was presented in the music video, wearing body-hugging monochrome outfits with cutouts regularly on the red carpet. The song, which made her feud with musician Katy Perry public, drew criticism for allegedly featuring an anti-feminist message. Something I find absurd because not only is it ridiculous to tell women that they aren't allowed to get in arguments with one another just because they're women, but also because male rivalry in hip-hop had successfully been going on for decades. Featured in the music video for Bad Blood were a group of similarly famous women, from Cara Delevingne to Gigi Hadid, who would eventually become known as her Girl Squad. Often spotted on the red carpets in somewhat coordinating outfits, their camaraderie was intended to show the world that Taylor had people in her corner. But it instead brought about discourse that Taylor was vapid for only surrounding herself with people who were similarly rich and beautiful, showing how at that point in time there was almost nothing that Taylor could do that wouldn't wind up with dozens of think pieces written about it. Compared to prior eras where Taylor typically stuck to one aesthetic, 1989 was all about experimentation, and she wore some incredibly daring outfits on the red carpet. Instead of gravitating towards the past as she had on most occasions, most of her red carpet looks were distinctly modern, prompting many to call her a trendsetter. Taylor debuted a new look in the May 2016 issue of Vogue, and it is often considered a precursor to her Reputation era. The look, which was undeniably edgy compared to her curls and cowboy boots, featured glam, goth, punk, and grunge elements like chokers, plaid, leather, and platforms. On red carpets, she would often wear black with bold makeup, and her street style took on an androgynous edge that took notes from 90s fashion trends. she was finally saying it was time for the world to stop seeing her as a naive teen who cried on her guitar, and instead as a woman who was unafraid to cause a ruckus. Around this time, Taylor once again found herself the subject of widespread media scrutiny. Why? Well, one of her most iconic scandals had returned with a vengeance. In 2016, Kanye West, who had on numerous occasions stated that he didn't regret the incident at the VMAs, released his song Famous, which had the lyrics, quote, "I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex. Why? I made that bitch famous." Upon the song's release, the lyric was heavily criticized by media outlets, but Kanye defended the song saying, quote, "I called Taylor and had an hour-long conversation with her about the line, and she thought it was funny and gave her blessings." In response, Taylor's management stated that she had never been made aware of the lyric that explicitly referred to her as a bitch, and that she had warned him against releasing a song with such a strong misogynistic message. This created two conflicting narratives about the situation, and with no evidence from either party, it was a case of he said, she said. At this point, Taylor's image was not one of innocence. She was someone who would and could get into arguments. This was an incredible difference to how the initial VMAs incident was received by the public. Just as the controversy was beginning to calm down, Kanye West released a music video for the song that featured nude sculptures of Taylor and other celebrities in bed together. This drew criticism from the public as it seemed as though he was purposely goading Taylor into retaliating. A few months later, his then-wife Kim Kardashian released a 3-minute illegal recording of Kanye and Taylor's conversation regarding the song, which alleged that Taylor had knowledge of it. In response, thousands of people accused her of lying, and her social media accounts were flooded with the snake emoji, prompting Instagram to create the function to filter comments. Following the backlash, Taylor went into seclusion, hiding herself from the press for more than a year and becoming intensely private, all the while working on her next project. Released in 2017, Reputation is without a doubt one of the most polarizing albums and eras of Taylor's career. The album, which discusses the situation she'd found herself in the past year and the complex emotion of finding love during a turbulent time, used marketing and promotion that directly alluded to the Kanye West controversy. In the days leading up to the album's release, Taylor cleared out her social media, posting only captionless snake videos, reclaiming the emoji that Kim K had used in reference to her, and snakes were a common motif throughout the era. Considered one of the greatest comebacks of the 21st century, Look What You Made Me Do openly satirized the public's perception of Taylor, and the rumors that had sprung up about her in recent years. There were dozens of clues for fans to find and interpret themselves, which simultaneously acted as a brilliant piece of advertising, with countless articles being made about the album's secret messages. Taylor had other projects that expressed frustration at how her character was twisted by the media, but in Reputation she went about it in a different way, allowing herself to get angry and point out how ridiculous these rumors were, as opposed to Shake It Off, which had a message that implied you should just let it go. The video references multiple points of Taylor's life and career, starting with a zombified version of herself from 2015's Out of the Woods, the last music video Taylor had released, burying her 2014 Met Gala self. Riddled with Easter eggs, the video concludes with a lineup of Taylor clones through the years, acknowledging the evolution of her image and her fall from grace. In music videos and performances, Taylor leaned into her new bad girl persona, with her wardrobe becoming darker and edgier than anything we'd seen before. But having learned a hard lesson about being too public, Taylor maintained her distance from the press throughout this period, and was rarely seen out and about or at red carpet events. Can't say I blame her. In direct contrast to the darkness of its predecessor, 2019's Lover was a bright and joyous event, featuring rainbows, butterflies, ice cream, hearts, and unicorns in its imagery. Butterflies, commonly used as a symbol for rebirth and transformation, were metaphorical of this new direction, and how Taylor had finally made peace with her past, proven by the resolution of her feud with Katy Perry, who appeared in the music video Me wearing a burger suit while Taylor was dressed as French fries. As the name implies, the album covers all facets of love from contentment to lust to heartache, and includes political themes about feminism and equality. An incredibly playful album, its music videos were filled with whimsy and fantasy, looking like something right out of the pages of a children's storybook. While there's no denying that Taylor has always had fun while working, it's never been more obvious than Lover, where her joy is infectious. And it's honestly a relief to see her truly enjoying herself after so many years of stress and negativity. While Taylor had often remarked at how she felt her treatment by the media and the public was rooted in misogyny, the Lover album marked the first time she spoke about it directly in her music, presenting several examples of sexist double standards in society. The Lover era also marked Taylor's return to the silver screen, starring in her first theatrical film since 2015's The Giver. 2019's Cats, although a critical and commercial failure, showed how content Taylor was in her current state, caring more about her experience working on the project than how others felt about it, revealing how much growth she'd undergone since the start of her career. While the modern influences on her style are apparent, she continued to draw inspiration from the past, specifically the late 60s, the era of love, with many of her outfits on the red carpet and music videos featuring sequins, fringe, bright colors, and psychedelic patterns. The influences from the past that Lover took on made appearances in the work of other musicians like Harry Styles, Dua Lipa, and Miley Cyrus, and ushered in a full-blown mid-century revival. Her everyday style looked almost 80s-esque, with its tie-dye and excessive use of denim, but overall still felt true to the chipperness of the era. Like the rest of us, Taylor spent 2020 stuck indoors, but by the end of the year she had 2 albums to show for it. Folklore and its sister album Evermore are told through a series of characters and narratives, allowing Taylor to express emotions and relationships in a way she couldn't with her usual autobiographical style. The albums embrace a rustic, nature-focused aesthetic that moves away from the brightness of Lover, perfectly capturing the melancholic feelings of a pandemic world and a glimmer of hope for the future. Many have made comparisons to the visuals in the album to the cottagecore aesthetic, which popped up around the same time. Considering the amount of cozy sweaters, celestial visuals, and long white dresses that are part of the era, this association is hardly a reach. Although some have called the era entirely new, looking back through her career, we've seen these autumnal and relaxed elements pop up in the past. Folklore and Evermore just have it perfected. Over the years, we've seen Taylor's style take notes from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, leading me to wonder if Folklore and Evermore will be bringing her to the 1970s. I personally wouldn't be opposed. Having examined Taylor's career over the course of 15 years, it's remarkable to see how much she's achieved at 31, and I'm sure that she'll continue growing for the better. Not only has she won countless awards and written hundreds of songs, but she's proven that she's more than capable of adapting her music and style as necessary without it coming off as disingenuous. Sure, lots of musicians have had style evolutions at different points of their career, but it isn't often that it directly correlates to their life. Which of Taylor's style eras is your favorite? I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!